Hey guys, welcome back to the Sure Parenting podcast, where every parent deserves to feel sure of their parenting. I'm your host, Sammy Bell, creator of Sure Parenting and author of Sure Parenting, Building Blocks to Create Their Best Childhood. Here on the podcast, we address the issues that make parents question themselves or their kids, and we discuss creative solutions that meet the needs of each unique parent and child. Let's dive in. Hi, welcome back to the Sure Parenting channel. Today we're going to talk about the nervous system, in particular the four main nervous system responses that you and your children will experience throughout your lifetime. The reason why is because if we understand the nervous system, we understand a component of behavior that has been overlooked for always. uh, Anytime that you think your kid is exhibiting quote unquote bad behavior, actually, they are either trying to meet a need, trying to avoid something, or they are in one of these nervous system responses and have lost the ability to control where their behavior is directed. And I guess you could also add that their brain is just literally underdeveloped. I know that some people attribute bad behavior to like literal infants. Most of you probably don't because you're here learning about respectful parenting. But nonetheless, that should be put in there too. So if you know that your child is past the stage of development where they can exhibit some level of impulse control around 4.5, voluntarily and against their own desires, right? It's when like between 3 and 4 that kind of develops where that idea of, they know better actually means anything. Prior to that, the knowing and the doing tracks are still separate in their minds. So that's a fun tidbit. And we get that mixed up because they are speaking. And so we start to attribute a lot of adult characteristics to them way before they're actually ready. A lot of behavior control comes from executive functioning, and executive functioning continues to develop in a neurotypical brain to 25, 26 years old. So, yeah, your 3-year-old doesn't have that yet. And then sometimes you'll be like, okay, but normally he does this just fine. Why is he freaking out today? Enter nervous system responses. So, our nervous system is designed to protect us, and it can be activated when we sense threat. So for a typical person, that might be seeing a dog chasing them, or a car coming their direction, or somebody's volume getting really raised, right? Those could be threats. For somebody with, say, PDA, that could be a glance. It can be an expectation, right? And so this video isn't about PDA, but it's a good example of the different sensitivities of different nervous systems. And we do not control our nervous system. We do not decide how our nervous system is going to respond to something. So it becomes important as a parent, especially as a responsive, respectful, empathic parent, to recognize when our child is in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and when we are in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So I have a course on resourcing safety that talks a lot about the nervous system and all of the different cues of safety, because there's lots of different levels of safety, and ways to increase your sense of safety so that you can stay regulated and not be taken over by your own nervous system responses. So recommend that if you yourself struggle with this, if you have CPTSD, and just have a heightened nervous system response yourself. So the fight response. This is the most active response. This is where you get angry, offended, upset, frustrated. All of your muscles clench up. You get dumps of adrenaline and cortisol from your brain to activate your muscles to fight, literally fight for your life. Sounds a little dramatic, but that's what's happening on like a biological level. And so we see a kid push somebody or throw something, and we're just like, oh my God, how could they do that? Because their nervous system has thrown them into a fight response. They did not ask for it, they did not choose it, it happened. So our first job is to not contribute to and add more fuel to that fire. Our second job, which could be intermixed with the first job, because they're kind of happening at the same time, is to be the barrier that is needed. So that might mean stepping in between two siblings that are fighting. That might be taking, a wooden sword out of a little boy's hand because he's about to whack his brother with it, right? It is active. It is, oh, okay, your nervous system has taken over your body, so you can't control your body. I, as the adult in charge here, am now going to be the one to be that safe barrier to keep everybody's bodies safe. We like to think that we can just verbally say, hey, don't do that. But if your nervous system has taken over your body, the don't and the self-control required to uphold that don't are not working very well, if at all. So they need us to physically be that barrier for them. We also want to, over time, teach our children ways to recognize that fight response and ways to get out of that fight response. For most little kids, they need a way to get that excess energy out of their body. Okay. So one of my kids' favorite ways to do this is called pushes. We lock hands, fingers to fingers, palm to palm, and we push. And they will push with all of their little might as hard as they can. And it really uses their whole body and it exerts that muscular pressure that their nervous system primed them to exert so that they can use up that adrenaline, expel that cortisol, and move through that fight response. Some kids need paper to rip up. Some kids need a box to stomp on. On my website, there's a free download for redirecting to appropriate targets with dozens of suggestions for what is your child currently doing when they're super triggered. Here's some alternatives that you can start to replace that with. Now, as an adult, yes, if you are all the way fully in fight mode, sure, stomp on a box. And most of us have enough self-control, enough awareness that we don't get thrown quite so far. So we can practice things with a little bit more intention and a little less volatility. Something like actual wall pushes, right? Push-ups against the wall, or doing some jump roping. If you are just noticing the tension build, you can start taking deep breaths. When you breathe deeply and you oxygenate your body and you breathe all the way down into your belly, you are taking back control of your body. You can sing. Singing, interestingly, indicates to your body that you are safe. Because why else would you be singing? You can get real nitty-gritty about it and start to examine, what was I thinking right before I felt the rage start to bubble under my skin, right? And you can start to challenge some of those thoughts. There's lots of things you can do it as an adult. If that's like that low level agitation where you're just irritable, going on a nice long walk moves your body. It gets bilateral stimulation going, right, left, right, left, right, left. And it helps you come back into your body, burn off that extra adrenaline, ground, stay focused on the goals at hand, right? So just because your body gets thrown into a fight response doesn't mean you have to fight, but you do have to do something with that energy. Some people are not as big physically expressive, so journaling, scribbling, even as an adult, especially as a kid, can be a really cool tool to let all of that adrenaline out in a really small little area. So those are some of the things that I do with kids. Then what about flight, right? So the flight response is, I want to escape. I want to get away. I need this to stop. Okay. Lots of little kids will just storm off to their room, which is fine, right? They need a moment. I need some space is a great indicator of what you're doing. But obviously, as the adult, we can see what they're doing, right? I had one kid tell me, I'm running away. And then they went and sat on the front porch. And I was like, okay, that works. Because walking is really regulating, right? But a lot of anxiety can indicate this flight response. I want to be out of the right now. and I want to avoid. Um, so coming back into your body in a lot of ways can help mitigate this response. Controlled breathing is really helpful. Using your five senses to recognize your surroundings. Um, Actually, as an adult, saying, I need a couple minutes, going into your room or whatever, locking a door so you have some space, coming back into your body. Sometimes tapping, EFT tapping, can be really, really regulating. Visualizing a safe place, reminding yourself that you are not actually under threat. This is a hard thing and you can do hard things. Um, for a kiddo who is in a flight response, often I like to give them some space, but I do want to make sure that they know I'm here once they feel ready to talk. So I'll check in on them every little bit. I will make sure I'm open as soon as they pop into the room. I have an open face, open arms. I'm not holding a grudge, right? I'm not adding fuel to this fire either. I'm not like, finally ready to talk, huh? Right? That sassy, antagonistic attitude does not help our children. It doesn't help us. So if I need to take that time that they've stormed off to black journal out some of my feelings, so be it. But I want to be the regulating presence for my children. So I'll pause here and explain one more thing I didn't say. The way that children learn self-regulation is not because we demand it. It's not because we yell at them. It's not because we take away their video games. It is because we co-regulate with them thousands of times. Now I know there are parents who are like, I learned how to regulate. My parents didn't co-regulate. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You learned how to suppress. If your parents never co-regulated with you, you did not learn co-regulation in childhood. You did not learn regulation in childhood. You learned suppression, which is not the same thing. And it does create toxicity in our body and it does cause illness. Like it's actually a big problem. So I'm not a fear monger. I'm not telling you your life is ruined or your children's lives are ruined. None of that. Always and always and forever, we're moving forward. Okay. We are where we are and we're moving forward. So putting that story aside, my job that I signed up for by having children is to co-regulate with them. Now, if it's really, really hard to sit in their feelings, I have inner child work to do. Nobody was comfortable with my feelings. That sucks. I now need to be comfortable with my feelings and practice and practice and practice and practice and co-regulate with myself thousands of times. And simultaneously, because we don't really get to push pause on the whole parenting thing, co-regulate with my child and practice and practice and practice. And I will mess up because I am human, because certainly nobody co-regulated with me and I'm still learning how to co-regulate with myself. And then I repair. Okay. So all that said, moving on to stage 3, that's the freeze response. So something to know is that there's the Broca's region, I think is what it's called. Any brain scientist, feel free to correct my pronunciation. There's an area of the brain that is responsible for language. And if it is too overwhelmed, it shuts off, it disconnects. So when somebody is in a freeze response, they feel very numb, empty, dissociated. And a lot of times for kids, they won't respond to us. And we feel very disrespected. We feel very agitated. We're like, they would if they would just listen to me, right? We are assuming they have control over this. They don't. They're in a freeze response. This is happening to them. Okay. So if your kid loses their language ability, they need to be regulated first before they can talk about whatever is happening. Shouting at them, demanding of them is not going to actually create lasting change. It's going to add more stress to their brain. And it's not a state where we can develop learning and new neural connections. So we have to regulate first. So from a freeze response, we actually want to upregulate. Okay. So for kids or for ourselves, honestly, swaying, gentle movement can be really helpful. Butterfly hug, where you pat right, left. If they will walk, cool. If they're literally just frozen, that's okay. You can stroke their arm or their back really gently. Sometimes they will have enough language to say something like, go away, something like that, which is an expression of, I am so overwhelmed, I just want everything to stop, right? So in that case, pull yourself back into your own space and just be nearby. Nearby might even be like outside of the doorway into the hall, if that's how much distance they need to feel safe. But again, we're open to reconnection. We're open to, and we're expecting that they're going to come through this and they're going to be a little more regulated, and then we're going to help them finish that off. If you find yourself in freeze, taking deep breaths, finding the edges of your body, so wiggling your fingers and toes, you're like, okay, there's my body. That's where I am. My toes are in my shoes. My butt is on the chair. Okay, okay, I'm here, right? And it sounds so silly, but it's not. When there is a break between body and brain, we can go real far off. We can be completely in a different world in our head, and it's a way that our brain protects us. So the opposite of that is pulling ourselves back into our body, feeling what we need to feel. Sometimes as we start to regulate, we'll actually move up into flight or even into fight. We'll realize, actually, I'm pissed. That's okay, because we know what to do with pissed, right? We can go back to those regulation strategies that we have for fight mode. Sensory awareness is another good one here. So if you're trying to help somebody come back, then you might say, what are 5 things that you can see in the room right now? Usually a really easy, so first of all, questions can be easier. Definitely not why questions, but questions that have a very clear and obvious answer. How many fingers do I have right now? Right? It helps bring their brain back online. If they're not ready, they're not ready. Wait patiently, sit in your own space, regulate yourself, ground yourself, project confidence that we're going to get through this until we do, right? But if they're kind of sort of talking but seem to be really distracted still, you can pull them back in with those 5 senses questions. 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things, I'm missing one. You can smell, 1 thing you can taste, something like that, right? So much so that you could even hand them a piece of gum. Can you taste that in your mouth? Right? Because chewing activates the proprioceptive sensors in your jaw. That is regulating, brings you back into your body. So, gentle movement, like I said, swaying, rocking, patting, stroking, those kinds of things. Fawn is a very interesting one because this is like the lowest on the polyvagal ladder of these options, but it's so low and so disconnected with the self that it almost circles back to appearing functional again, where the person is so overwhelmed, so scared. So like in the moment, Fawn could just be like flopped down, frozen, like I don't know what to do, I don't know how to respond. But for adults in Fawn, they're often chronic people pleasers. They do not even know who they are, what they like, what they want, what they need, what they feel. They're so disconnected from themselves for so long. And it ends up creating a ton of burnout where their adrenal fatigue takes over and they can't even get out of bed. They don't think through what they need before they just agree to things because they have to be agreeable to be safe. They have to say yes for people to like them. If people like them, then they're safe, right? And this often stems from a childhood that wasn't safe. And it's one of the things that I look for when I hear about like the easy child or the child that's so agreeable or the child that never gives us a hard time. My spidey senses go off. Why? Are there super agreeable kids? Absolutely. Does every agreeable kid, presuppose a problem? Absolutely not. Okay. We all have different personalities. But does that child know themselves? Does that adult know themselves? Do they have opinions? Do they get to say no sometimes? Do they have a sense of autonomy and control over their own world? Or are they just going along because it's easier to not cause any ripples? Right? In order to be able to feel a sense of accomplishment and success in your own life, you have to know who you are and you have to know what you want. And you have to have the boundaries and the autonomy to create an environment that supports those goals, even when you're little. Okay, so that's why we practice respectful parenting, because we want our kids to have opinions. We want them to be able to say, no, I disagree. Great. This is a healthy skill. And when adults do not have this skill, it often makes them very inauthentic. It leads to complete and total burnout, often to chronic illness, and this perpetual, you tell me who I need to be just so that I can be safe. I won't cause any problems. Just tell me what you need me to be, and I will chameleon myself and contort myself and become chronically codependent to please you so that I can be safe. The deepest sense of discomfort with conflict. Now, some of you might be dealing with that. And in that case, it is probably very hard to contend with your children's emotions. And for both of you, it is immensely important to get comfortable with feelings, to trust that our bodies are supposed to feel. We are supposed to go through a fight response sometimes. We are supposed to feel angry sometimes. We are supposed to feel grief and sadness. We're supposed to say no. All of us, all ages. We're supposed to tap into our body and go, my body actually doesn't like that. I know everybody and their mother loves Crocs. I don't like them, right? And I'm actually from a generation where everybody hated Crocs and then everybody loved Crocs. Regardless, my kids can't wear Crocs. Not because of me, actually. They create blisters on their feet. Something about their feet doesn't work. Now, this is a silly, simple thing, but there was a time in my life where I couldn't even say that because I was so afraid of saying anything that could be disagreed with. Because if somebody disagreed with me, then there was conflict, and conflict was dangerous. A fundamental belief that I had to change to have healthy relationships with my husband and my children is that a healthy relationship is not conflict free. Please hear me when I say that a healthy relationship is not conflict free. A healthy relationship means we are both safe to have respectful conflict. We are both safe to mess up and repair. I trust that about this relationship. So I get to be authentically me. And you get to be authentically you. And it's a hard thing to learn as an adult. There is a lot of inner child healing that has to happen. There is a lot of holding this inner child part of yourself while it shakes and trembles and waits for the other shoe to drop because it is so afraid of what might happen because you said the thing and you disagreed with them and they're mad at you now and they think you're terrible and your brain will go off. And it's just trying to protect you. It knows, it remembers. But you are the grown up now. You create the safe environment now. So you're going to hold that inner child space and you might sway and you might rock and you might pat and you might stroke and you're going to soothe. And what's happening is you're moving through this bell curve of dysregulation. You have to move through the whole stages of grief. You have to feel activation and feel resistance. And then you start to feel really scared and sad. And then you reach acceptance. And you have to complete the whole cycle. And as parents, if we cut off our child's cycle with bribes or threats or anything like that, we stop their brain from learning how to complete that regulation cycle. So we have to learn how to tolerate that discomfort. And that might mean we need a break. That might mean we're sitting there tapping right in front of them. Even though they're crying, I know we're safe. Even though they're mad at me, I know that I made the right choice. Even though they're dysregulated, I know this can't last forever, right? And we are feeling our feelings. We're not hiding from them. We're not pretending they're not there. And we're getting through them. We are processing them. I have an emotional processing journal too, if you need like an anchor to help you walk through those things. There's tons of tools in there. If this is hard for you, you are not alone by a long shot. almost every single client I've ever had in 8 years now, 9 years, 8 years, something like that, has had a hard time with difficult emotions. One, because they're difficult, because we have mirror neurons. Their dysregulation fuels ours. Two, because nobody sat with them when they were a kid. Nobody was able to go, oh, this is dysregulation. No worries, we've got this. I can do this with you. You're not alone. I know, it's a lot. It's scary as heck. You feel like it's never going to end. And it will. And I'll be here with you until it does. And be here does not have to be physically right next to them. It is a great way to do it. But if you need a break, take a break. Your coming back and checking in is enough. If you are like in the middle of doing dishes, you can keep doing them. Like, I'm right here, buddy. I know you got to feel the feels. That's a lot of feelings. Let them out. I'm right here. Right? The energy you bring to the emotional situation, to the nervous system dysregulation, is far more important than what you say, precisely where you put your body, precisely how you engage. It is the energy you bring. I know what this is. I know we're going to get through it. I trust that this process is good for your development, for my development, and for our relationships development. We're going to get through this. I've got you. I believe you. And I believe in you. So, with that, I hope you find that helpful. I hope it helps you to create the mindset to go into those emotional experiences with your children, with your own emotional experiences, so that you can help your inner child work through and learn these skills as well. And if you need more support with that, you can always join us with group coaching, or you can take some of the courses that we have over on the website, www.shoreparenting.com. And also it links to the member vault, which has all the different courses. So I am grateful to you for being here, for being willing to learn and listen. And I wish you the absolute best of luck. I know that you're the kind of parent that wants to do well by their kid because you're here. So that does count. That counts for something. I'm proud of you, and I hope you feel proud of yourself. And I'm here to help if you need it. Talk to you later.